Welcome back to Your Nerdy Show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. So after years of waiting, Mortal Kombat 2 Inches finally gave fans the one thing the 2021 movie completely skipped: an actual Mortal Kombat tournament. And honestly, whether you loved the movie or thought it was messy in places, this sequel definitely feels way more like the games. Bigger fights, more iconic characters, more brutal fatalities, and finally a story that feels like it's building towards something massive for the future of the franchise. But that ending? Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Because on the surface, it looks like a pretty straightforward victory for Earthrealm. Shao Khan is dead, Katana becomes queen, Johnny Cage gets his confidence back, and the heroes seemingly save the day. But if you've played the games or know anything about Mortal Kombat lore, then you already know things are never that simple in this universe. Death barely means anything. Villains always come back stronger, and every victory usually opens the door for an even bigger threat. And that's exactly what this ending does.
It's showtime. Get over here!
Shao Kahn's plan was bigger than just winning. The movie starts by immediately raising the stakes with the introduction of Shao Khan, and honestly, this version of him feels much closer to the terrifying Emperor fans have wanted to see for years. He's not just some generic bad guy trying to invade Earthrealm. He's basically a conqueror obsessed with domination, and the film makes it clear that his plan goes beyond just winning a tournament. He wants complete control over reality itself. That's why the Amulet of Shinnok becomes such a huge part of the story. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Mortal Kombat lore, the Amulet of Shinnok is one of the most dangerous artifacts in the entire franchise. In the games, Shinnok is basically a fallen elder god, which means his power level is absolutely insane. So the moment the movie introduced the amulet, it was obvious this wasn't just about Shao Kahn anymore. The film was quietly setting up future movies from the very beginning. And honestly, that's what makes the ending so interesting. Because technically, Shao Kahn loses. Katana finally turns against him completely. Johnny destroys the amulet, and Earthrealm survives. But the movie spends way too much time teasing Netherrealm, necromancy, resurrection, and Quan Chi for this to simply end here. It feels less like a conclusion and more like the beginning of the franchise's real story.
Feel comfortable hitting a girl.
Don't worry. You won't.
Katana's ending changes everything. Let's start with Katana, because her ending is actually one of the most important parts of the movie. Throughout the entire film, she's basically trapped between two identities. On one side, she's been raised by Shao Kahn, manipulated into becoming his weapon and loyal heir. But on the other side, she still carries the memory of her real father and the kingdom Shao Kahn destroyed. The emotional conflict there is actually handled surprisingly well, because you can see she's constantly questioning who she really is. And then during the final battle, Shao Kahn makes the biggest mistake possible. He insults her father and calls her weak, just like him. That's the moment everything changes. Instead of controlling her through fear, he finally pushes her into embracing her true identity. And the fact that she kills him by literally decapitating him is such a perfect Mortal Kombat moment, because it's brutal, personal, and symbolic all at once. She's not just defeating Shao Kahn physically, she's ending his rule completely.
It's a war for the fate of your world.
Why Outworld could become even more dangerous. Now here's where things get really interesting for the future. In the games, Katana becoming queen is a massive deal, because Outworld without Shao Kahn creates a huge power vacuum. And whenever there's a power vacuum in Mortal Kombat, chaos follows immediately. Different factions start fighting for control, alliances break apart, and new villains emerge. So even though the movie treats Katana's victory like a happy ending, it's probably going to create an even bigger conflict later on. Especially because Shao Kahn's death doesn't automatically mean Outworld suddenly becomes peaceful. There are still Tarkatans, warlords, sorcerers, monsters, and loyalists who followed Shao Kahn for years. Some of them probably won't accept Katana as ruler at all. So Mortal Kombat 3 Inches could easily explore Outworld falling into civil war, while Earthrealm deals with an even darker threat from Netherrealm. Quan Chi's appearance is the biggest setup in the movie. And speaking of darker threats, we need to talk about Quan Chi, because honestly, his appearance at the end is probably the most important scene in the entire movie. If you know Mortal Kombat lore, then you already understand why fans are freaking out about this character finally appearing in live action. Quan Chi isn't just another villain. He's one of the most dangerous manipulators in the entire franchise. This is the guy responsible for some of the biggest tragedies in Mortal Kombat history. He manipulates Scorpion, corrupts warriors, resurrects the dead, and constantly works behind the scenes while bigger villains take the spotlight. That's exactly why his role in this movie feels so suspicious. At first, he seems almost secondary compared to Shao Khan. He's helping secure the amulet, operating from the shadows, and eventually gets forced into helping the heroes resurrect fallen allies. But that's what makes him dangerous. Quan Chi works best when people underestimate him. And if the movies follow the games even a little bit, then there's a very good chance he's secretly manipulating events for a much larger plan. The movie is secretly setting up Shinnok. The biggest clue is obviously Shinnok. The movie keeps mentioning the Amulet of Shinnok over and over again for a reason. You don't introduce one of the most powerful elder gods in Mortal Kombat lore unless you plan to use him eventually. And since Quan Chi is traditionally one of Shinnok's closest followers, it feels incredibly obvious that the franchise is building towards Shinnok becoming the ultimate villain. Honestly, Shao Khan may have just been the warm-up, because as powerful as Shao Khan is, Shinnok operates on an entirely different level. Shao Khan wants conquest. Shinnok wants destruction and corruption on a cosmic scale. He's basically the kind of villain that forces every realm to unite against him. So if Warner Bros. Really wants to turn Mortal Kombat into a long-running cinematic universe, Shinnok is the perfect final boss for that storyline, and Quan Chi could be the bridge connecting everything together.
Johnny will definitely die.
Johnny Cage completely steals the movie. What's also really fascinating is how the movie handles Johnny Cage, because let's be honest, he completely steals the film. Carl Urban's version of Johnny feels exactly like what fans wanted. Arrogant, funny, washed up, but still weirdly lovable. The movie smartly turns him into this actor desperately trying to prove he's still relevant, which actually makes him more relatable than the typical overconfident Johnny from the games. At first, everyone sees him as a joke. Even the Earthrealm defenders don't fully trust him. But by the end, Johnny becomes one of the key heroes responsible for saving everyone. Destroying the amulet isn't just about stopping Shao Khan. It's about Johnny rediscovering who he really is. And the funniest part is that after all of that growth, he immediately starts exaggerating his accomplishments to Baraka and the Tarkatans. That's such a perfect Johnny Cage moment, because even after becoming a genuine hero, he still can't resist acting like a celebrity, telling a ridiculous story during an interview. But his character arc also matters for the future, because Johnny Cage is traditionally one of the emotional centers of Mortal Kombat stories. He starts as comic relief, but over time, he becomes one of Earthrealm's most important defenders. So this movie feels like the beginning of that transformation. Quan Chi could bring everyone back. Now, another massive thing the ending sets up is resurrection. Quan Chi helping revive fallen characters basically confirms the franchise isn't afraid to bring people back from the dead, which honestly is one of the most Mortal Kombat things imaginable. In these games, characters die constantly and then return through magic, Netherrealm corruption, time travel, alternate realities, or pure nonsense. Death is basically temporary, and that opens the door for huge characters returning in future movies. We could see more versions of Kano, maybe even darker corrupted fighters, revenants, or completely different timelines later on. Once Resurrection enters the story, the franchise suddenly becomes way more unpredictable. And honestly, I think that's exactly what Warner Bros. Wants. Mortal Kombat is finally embracing the games. They clearly don't want these movies to feel grounded anymore. The first film was relatively small scale compared to the games, but Mortal Kombat 2 Inches fully embraces the insanity of the franchise. Bigger realms, magical artifacts, undead sorcerers, giant armies, brutal fatalities. It finally feels like the crazy video game universe fans expected. That's probably why the movie is being treated almost like a soft reboot of the first film. Even Louis Tan basically described the original as a prequel, and you can absolutely feel that while watching this sequel. The 2021 movie was focused on introducing characters and building the world. Mortal Kombat 2 Inches is the movie that finally delivers the tournament, the iconic rivalries, and the larger mythology. What happens in Mortal Kombat 3? So where does Mortal Kombat 3 Inches go from here? Honestly, there are several possibilities. The most obvious route is Shinnok becoming the next major villain with Quan Chi acting as his servant. That would naturally escalate the stakes from physical conquest to supernatural apocalypse. Earthrealm and Outworld might even have to work together under Katana's leadership to stop Netherrealm. Another possibility is the return of Shao Khan himself. This is Mortal Kombat, after all. Characters almost never stay dead forever. And if Quan Chi starts experimenting with necromancy even more, bringing back Shao Khan in some corrupted undead form would totally fit the franchise.
There's also the possibility of introducing even more iconic characters now that the universe feels established. Fans are already speculating about Nightwolf, Noob Saibot, Jade, Sindel, and even Onaga eventually appearing, especially because the games are filled with lore the movies haven't even touched yet. Warner Bros. Clearly wants a bigger franchise, and honestly, Warner Bros. Probably sees huge franchise potential here now. The first movie released during COVID and still performed well on streaming, but this sequel is the real test. If audiences show up in theaters and the movie becomes profitable, there's almost no chance the studio stops at just 2 films. Especially because fantasy action franchises are incredibly valuable right now when they successfully build loyal fan bases. And despite the flaws, these Mortal Kombat movies clearly understand one thing. Fans want spectacle, iconic characters, brutal fights, and game-accurate insanity. That's exactly what this sequel leans into. Our nerdy thoughts. So yeah, Mortal Kombat 2 Inches may have ended with Shao Kahn's death and Earthrealm surviving once again. But honestly, this feels less like the ending of a story and more like the true beginning of this franchise. Quan Chi's arrival, the constant Shinnok teases, Katana becoming queen of Outworld, and the possibility of fallen fighters returning from the dead all make it pretty clear that Warner Bros. Is planning something much bigger moving forward. And if Mortal Kombat 3 Inches really goes full Netherrealm war with Shinnok as the next major villain, then we could finally see the live-action franchise reach the insane scale fans have wanted for decades. But what do you guys think? Do you think Quan Chi is secretly planning something bigger? Will Shao Kahn somehow return? And who do you most want to see in Mortal Kombat 3? Drop all your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Mortal Kombat breakdowns, ending explained videos, and future sequel updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Sub-Zero.
I am reborn.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.